Welcome back to Flying Upstream Free Spirits, where we explore the extraordinary lives of people who dare to question everything and follow their own truth. Our guest today is someone who's lived multiple lifetimes in one. Born in Kazakhstan, Marat Omarov grew up on a military base, entered a military university as a child, built a powerful political career, and even received a medal from the president. From the outside, it looked like success, but on the inside, emptiness. What happens when you have everything you thought you wanted, but none of it feels real? Marat walked away from politics, power, and prestige to rebuild himself from the ground up through meditation, some psychedelics, and deep inner work. And now he's creating something extraordinary, a 200-acre regenerative village in Costa Rica built on values of sustainability, spirituality, and freedom. This is the story of unbecoming and rediscovering who you truly are. Marat, welcome to Flying Upstream.
Thank you so much, Christine. What a great introduction. I have to write it down in order to I realized you literally described all my life in three sentences. Thank you.
All right, I want to dive right in. So, I want to start at the beginning. You grew up on a military base in Kazakhstan. What was the environment like for you as a child, and how did it shape your sense of discipline and identity early on?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I grew up in a military base. I was born in Kazakhstan, but that military base was in Belarus. So I grew up there but at the same time, it was like all one big country, which was called Soviet Union. And it was I grew up there till the age of 10. And honestly, and this is looking back, I believe it was a happy childhood. It was a very happy childhood with apparently a lot of programming that you realize way later in life. But looking back as a child, and this is always a philosophical, in a sense, question that I also ask myself, but children are kind of happy in whatever environment, most probably, because this is childhood. And whatever happens or is happening around, so you just treat it as normal, and it's great because it's childhood, right? You're just happy to be doing whatever. And so it was a happy childhood, and I'm actually grateful for this upbringing, for how my parents truly dedicated their lives to giving us the best life that in their perception we could have. So it really formed, in a sense, kind of true belonging at that moment. And it was really beautiful and very colorful and very loving and very safe. It was truly the feeling of safety that the moment we left from there, I personally, now looking back, I remember that we lost, in a sense. It felt like a complete collapse from that after these first 10 years of my life personal. But living back then, I remember, we were not even closing doors when we were sleeping. It was on locks, and people were just it truly felt like a community, a peculiar community. It's a military base, but at the same time, you don't, well, there are all sorts of communities. If you would tell to that type of a community that in 30 years there are going to be I don't know, polyamorous communities existing, they would go wow, what is craziness, So
Yeah.
without putting any labels, but it was truly a community of belonging and of this unified kind of feeling and of happy childhood.
That's really sweet. And I think it's so nice to hear that you're finding positive. Many people would say that a military base environment and just that upbringing would be too rigid and too structured. And I know that you were actually sent to a military university at just 10 years old. And
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
you said you literally jumped out of a window to escape. Take us
Yeah.
back to that moment. What were you running from and what were you running toward?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a military school. It was not 10, it was 14, but it was like a military school and then a military university. So by the age of 20, when I jump out of that window toward the freedom, looking back, I realized, and way later in life, that by the age of 20, I was actually, for 17 out of my first 20 years of my life, 17, I was in a sense in an army. And that's,
That's a
I
lot.
believe it's a lot. It's a lot. And honestly, what I was, yeah, I think running from, at that time, there was no idea of running towards. Maybe running towards my freedom, for sure, but running from not being free, running from rigidity, running from extensive um, extensive feeling that your will is taken from you and that you don't have any any decision over your life, in a sense. All decisions are made for you. The only thing that you have to do is to obey. And it was not sitting well with my free spirit, which I could not process at the time. It was not. I will be very much lying, extensively lying to you if I would tell you, Christine, it was like a result of like deep thoughts and contemplation. No, it was just a reaction of the psyche, or like, reaction of like of a rebel inside, that I was like, I'm done. I'm like, I don't want this. This is breaking me. I don't feel good. And it was not a decision of like, yeah, like I have a plan. No, it was just like, I cannot stand this anymore. And what I cannot stand, I could not put it into words. It was not like, like, yeah, just like, these are the things that I'm not agree with. It was just like, no, no, and that's it. And that's what happened. And when I remember when I was a little boy, when I was 14, and this was like the first month, or during the first month in this military school, when I got there and I realized what it is, and I was like, I don't want it, and being a kid, 14-year-old kid, that I remember at that time I just started exploring what did it feel being in this like school to which I was going. And there was a school dynamic of a 14-year-old young teenager, like, the first romance, and you're like having this social dynamic of friendships, and I just started integrating, because we changed countries. Remember, like, by the age of 10, we moved from Belarus to Kazakhstan, and it was a new sovereign Kazakhstan. The Soviet Union just collapsed, and by the age of 14, I already switched to another school. So, and that for the first time, I felt this belonging to this great group of kids. And I'm like, no, now you're going to the military school. And I was like, you must be kidding me. I don't want to. And I remember this first like kind of month that I was there, and I vividly remember this moment of crying to my father when my mom and dad, they were there, and we were like three of us, and I was just crying, and I was like, I don't want this. I don't want to be here. This is no. And I remember my mom at that moment, obviously, like, a woman's heart, and she's like, hey, let's take him out from here. And my father, and I tell this with all respect and understanding of why he did this, but at the same time, it's not taking away the trauma that it created, And my father was like, if you're gonna, like, if we're gonna take you away from here, you're gonna give up now, and you're gonna see your life as a coward for the rest of your life, the person who gave up. And he's like, and this is, you're gonna live with this forever. And how you gonna look back, and like, people, what your friends are going to tell you when you're gonna get back to them? They're gonna see you as weak. They're gonna see you as a person who gave up. And honestly, at that moment, I was like, I don't care. I don't care how people are like. It's not sitting well with me. But that kind of prep talk that he did to me, and I was like, shit, okay, it seems I will do it. It seems I'm gonna do it. And this was the last moment, Christine, till the age of 40, that I could cry. That was the
Yeah,
last moment when I could.
that's pretty significant. I
Yeah.
mean, feeling that emotions are not welcome, that feeling of,
Man up.
yeah, like push down how you're feeling, right? Doesn't matter if you're angry or devastated or terrified, doesn't matter. just do what you're told, do what society expects of you. And
Yeah.
you took that to a new level too, because you went on to have a stellar political career in your government. And then after that, you actually left all of that. You left your country, your career, your reputation. And I can imagine that must have been terrifying when that happened. You were walking away from everything.
It felt like jumping out of the window, honestly. Nothing has
Different
changed. A
time.
different window, different
Yeah,
conditions, same things. And it is in a sense, and I hope we can go as much deep and spiritual in a sense here with you, because I truly believe that we are here in this physical existence, each of us, we're carrying certain mission why we're here. And I believe my life is a testimony, and my life is an example, and my life is serves this purpose of creating this bridge between systems and or brain and heart, or systems and the softer space, and past rigidity and hierarchy and heterarchy and more flat structures. And that's what all my life is an example of this, and that's what I'm here to do on the
I love that.
grand level, on like regardless what I'm gonna be doing. And I know, and it's not like, oh, I'm such a unique person. No, there are like others like me, and we're like all contributing. We all are world changers on the grand scheme, all on our certain level. And this, and me getting drawn to these systems, to this structure, is something that I'm carrying in myself as my shadow. And me understanding that this is my shadow, and understanding that I actually have an ability and strength and power inside of me that the universe put into me and like empowered me with, is actually my gift to create this synergy and to create this hierarchy and to create different structures which are going to contribute to this new, more beautiful world that's possible. And this is, again, this is not something like it is a superpower. To understand this, it is a superpower. And I honestly, I do take give credit to myself for understanding this superpower, but it's not a superpower of me only person. We all 8 billion people in the world have this superpower. That the journey there is to unlearn, to deprogram in order to recognize the shadow and to recognize the gift and to follow the gift, rather than to stay in this shadow environment and to follow your ego, but to actually convert this into and plant this into a fertile soil, and to allow this tree to grow, and to have this, and to give these fruits or flowers, whatever you're representing, to this more beautiful world that's possible. So it is kind of work that, in a sense, we all, and I'm no one to say like we all have to do this work. I'm no one to say that who has to do something, but it is the work. It is the work that is there for all of us. That's possible for all of us, and if we all kind of follow that type of work, then this more beautiful world that will appear, right? Because we all are day to day
Right.
building it.
Well, I
So
love where you're going with this, and I kind of want to pull this thread a little bit more because you're talking about the inner journey. And I'd love to hear more about what that was for you, the psychedelic ceremonies, meditation, the ego death experiences. Can you describe one of those moments when you felt yourself just completely dissolve?
yeah, thank you. Yeah, psychedelics largely contributed to who I am today, and I don't want also to give like all ownership to these substances and medicine just to be like, oh yeah, this is like 10 grams of mushroom whatsoever. No, it's not as easy, but at the same time, I do acknowledge that this is like a large part of the puzzle. And for me personally, one of the very vivid moments was during 2020, during pandemic. And I remember I just got out of out of, well, I was getting out of one more COVID that I was getting, and I was invited to a ceremony with Huachuma, which is San Pedro, which is like a it's an active compound in mescaline, and it was a ceremony in Siancan in Mexico, and I was, for several times I was rejecting that, and then there was an invitation that I could not neglect anymore. And if it's a funny coincidence of things, when I remember at that time I still had this very self-confident mentality that I can handle whatever in a sense. And I've been handling a lot of things related to psychedelics before in my life, before that ceremony. It was my first encounter with Huachuma, and it's like kind of like it's a big glass that you have to drink, and because I was in this COVID thing, it's a funny story, because like I didn't have any sense of taste or smell, and I took this first glass, and I was like, and I sat there and like in the ceremony, and other people are like rolling, and they're already feeling it, and I'm like, I feel nothing, and I'm like, I feel a little bit something, but I'm like, I'm here to go deep. I'm like, I'm coming to the shaman. I'm like, I don't feel anything. He's like, would you like to have a second glass? I'm like, sure. I'm getting a second glass, and then another half an hour class, and I don't feel anything. And people are like still rolling, and I'm like, everybody's having like profound something, and I'm like, I'm not there. I'm coming to the shaman. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I have to take more. He's like, hey, listen, the medicine isn't you, but if you feel, but sure. And I'm like, let's do it. And I start drinking this third glass, and at that moment I realized that my sense of, and maybe that's like how psychedelics affected my brain, I don't know, till now, that I got back my sense of taste and smell, and I'm drinking this huachuma, and it tastes like if you're drinking liquid earth, liquid soil, and it's horrible. And I'm drinking half of the glass, and I'm like, oh my god, this was horrible. And he's like, let's also do rapé. Like, rapé is a dried tobacco that they very often used in, like, you inhale it, and it like helps to kind of ground yourself, but at the same time it enhances whatever the effect of you took. And I'm taking rapé, and I remember that in that same second I don't feel anymore any ground down my feet. I'm crawling to my place in the circle, and I'm dissolving into empty black hole, which feels completely terrifying. And terrifying, not just, Christine, this is like the worst fear that you can experience in life as a person, I believe, because it totally feels like you're dying, but you're not just physically dying. You kind of realize that your body is there, but your mind is dying in a sense. And the worst fear that you've been carrying till that that I've been carrying till that moment, and that fear was that I'm going to go completely mad. That like I'm going to stay there, and the fear, of course, of like something's gonna go wrong. So like in that moment, I was like, I went completely mad, and things are going wrong. And looking at other people, and this is like already 2-3 hours in the ceremony, so people are getting sober already. So in that like troubled mind in the moment, I'm like, okay, things are wrong, because now people are normal and I'm not. Like, me at that moment, I could not process that, like, hey, like the medicine kicked in very late. I took like 2.5 times more than anybody else, and so like obviously the effects are going to be way more stronger. And it's the feeling that, like, you have nowhere to put yourself to, because you open your eyes and you see all these fractals of the reality, and the triangle clouds, and the sacred geometry of the reality all over. You're closing your eyes, and it's the same. And I was keep falling into this deep well, and how it felt, this ego death, how it feels. It's like I was actively trying with my conscious mind to grasp into like little stones, in a sense, in this deep well. And this stone could be like, oh no, but what languages do I speak? And I speak 5. And I was just like, what is a language? And I was just like, I don't remember, everything mixed, like which language do I speak, which language do I understand? And this stone that I was holding, that was like part of my identity, like I speak 5 languages, so like bam, and it doesn't exist anymore, and I'm falling back down into this deep well, dark black bath. And I'm like, wait, I have a mom and a sister. What are their names? And I cannot remember their names. And I'm like, in which country do I live? And what is the country? I have a dog. What is the name of my dog? Everything collapses, and it's a never-ending process of this collapsing of, like, I was like, wait a second. I worked in politics. And that was this me, this kind of like important person. I was wearing a suit and a tie, and it's just like, it doesn't matter anymore. And now looking back, of course, I'm like, yeah, of course. And then you fall to this bliss of a joy of feeling oneness with existence and with this beautiful universe, when you can finally feel everything that I read in the spiritual books whatsoever, everything that you read of, like Eckhart Tolle and Joe Dispenza and all of these things, and there's just like surrender experiment and whatsoever, and then you kind of embody all this knowledge into, like, that's what it meant. That's how it feels. And you feel for this blissful moment how you can bend the reality into whatever, and everything that is getting born from inside of you is just bliss and feel of oneness and love, which is just shared. But this is a short moment after 2 hours of dying and dying and dying and dying. And this was a large contributor. I hope I painted a vivid picture for everybody who wants to ever try this.
Incredible. Incredible. I love that. It sounds like you really allowed yourself to embrace the experience and learn from it and let it help take you forward on your journey, which is really cool. And I know you're actually now having this beautiful vision for the regenerative village in Costa Rica. Tell us about that village. What does it look like? How is it designed? What makes it different from a typical eco community?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's called the Ark. It's a 200-acre property, which is 80 hectares if somebody is listening outside of US. We are now 34 adults and 17 kids from 15 countries. It's a new, we call it a like regenerative economy model, where there is no, first of all, obviously it is a land which was depleted. So I bought this land, which was deforested more than 60 years ago. It was a
Wow.
pasture year for 60 years. So we're on this noble mission to reforest back, to bring back the biodiversity, to show and to prove that human settlement can actually bring a positive change, both to nature, to social structure, to infrastructure around everything. That it shall not necessarily mean gentrification or extraction. We are a model, a village that doesn't have investors. We are redistributing 31% of the profit among the residents of the village. So whatever we're generating stays on the land. We're reinvesting everything in the well-being of the village. We call ourselves a regenerative wellness village. So it's a village dedicated to healthy lifestyle and well-being of everybody who is involved and or in touch with us. We are giving 25% of the profit of the village back to locals. We are investing 10% of our profits into other preservation efforts or infrastructure projects outside of our village in the neighboring towns of that where we're located. So in a sense, we're building the world together, which we envision that is possible if we build it from the heart rather than from the grid. We are now opening a school, which is a Montessori-inspired self-guided education school for 24 kids. Eventually, it's going to go to 200 kids. We have a 15-acre permaculture farm. which is producing obviously non-GMO, organic, locally grown food for everyone, not only for the members of the community. And later on, we have a beautiful shala and like regular programmings. We don't call ourselves an intentional community because we want to be separated from this kind of tag, because that tag kind of got and attracts different type of people who are very much into intentional communities. And very often it might sound a little bit culty sometimes. Sometimes it's complicated. A lot of people got burned on intentional communities and they're like running away from them. So we don't want to be that. We don't call ourselves an eco village because it also has a certain kind of name. We're in a sense creating this new category, which is a wellness village and a regenerative wellness village. We don't use very often regenerative wellness village because then it becomes complicated for people. As much as regeneration is this kind of necessity, what has to emerge in the world, in this our deeply entangled world that as we see it, because we do have to regenerate not only nature, but also economical models, healthcare and education. So if you look into the like what does it mean regeneration, right? It's like repairing, restoring. So it's kind of creating conditions conducive to life rather than extracting from life. So capitalism is a deeply non-regenerative model. Capitalism is a purely extractive model. And now, finally, in a sense, we're seeing how it's affecting the world. How now, like richest people in the world own more financial wealth than 3.4 billion people in the world. How now we're seeing that, capitalism kind of promise to us that every new generation is going to be more successful than the previous one, and millennials are the first generation that is less successful than the previous generation. So now all promises of capitalism are kind of failing, and we see that the system is failing, and we see that it's an inevitable collapse in a sense of that model. And regenerative economy is the post-capitalistic model. And like, how can we take the good from it, but from capitalism, and like upgrade it and create non-extractive models. So that's what we're creating. And this is also where remember a little bit previously in our conversation when I told you that like I see myself and my role in the world, in this human existence, is to create this bridge, and that's what I also believe the arc is. The arc is this bridge through this inverse point in the history of our timeline when that model is collapsing, and we see it a lot, right? Like through wars, through crises, through everything, like through despair and discontent of the how things are working, or actually how things are not working, towards this more beautiful world that is emerging. And we believe that models like us, they are an example of how things can work. And we're not pretending to know all the answers, but we are daring to experiment. We are daring to try. But we definitely know that we're not going to feed the machine, that we're not going to build whatever new is emerging from the same principles, but we're rather gonna try, and we're going to make so many mistakes. And in the books in the history books, if there are going to be history books later on, look, I don't know where it's going to go, but it's going to be not even a page in a history book. But in a sense, we all together are believing that this better world is possible, or more beautiful world is possible, and we are okay with experimenting and trying. And that's what the arc is on the larger scale.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. Marat, you have had truly an incredible life. And as we wrap up here, we've got one question for you. So, looking back at your entire journey from a boy on a military base to a man building a new kind of village, what do you think you were truly searching for all along?
I I think making a difference would be a good. I wanted to make a difference and truly contribute to this new world since I was a kid, and I don't know where it came from. Even when I was 5, 6 years young, and that was the thing. And another thing, I think belonging would be an answer, and belonging would be to people who want to make a difference.
Amazing. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think many of us also want to feel like we belong. And when we're stuck in a path or a track that our culture or society is forcing on us, it's very hard to feel like you belong because you don't agree and you're just not really in alignment with the world around you.
Yeah.
So thank you. So beautiful. Marat, thank you so much for reminding us that sometimes we have to completely fall apart before we can become who we truly are, and that freedom isn't found in status or success, but in returning to our own essence. If you want to learn more about Marat and his regenerative village in Costa Rica, check out the episode notes for links. And if this conversation sparked something in you, a desire to live differently, to question the systems we were born into, join our community at flyingupstreampodcast.com. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring.